So I've recently come to this realization that my word is not as reliable as I would like it to be. And what I mean is, like a lot of times at work, we'll have all these different things we want to get going. And a lot of the times there's a certain part of the task that relies on me to do a certain thing. And I just get so overloaded with other tasks that I tend to forget. And I don't have like a system in place. Well, a good enough system of making sure I stay on top of things. So over time, if I am constantly forgetting to do things for the team, then they're going to come to expect that I'm going to forget to do stuff. And then if I say, hey, yeah, I'll get that done, they don't really know if that's going to get done or not. And I do a ton of shit. So it's not like I'm just like fucking off everything. But coming up, like one of my bigger goals right now is to come up with a better system of making sure that I document whatever it is that I need to do so that when I do say I'm going to do something, it gets done. Like I've always been the guy that, like, when I have an appointment, I show up early. I don't show up late to shit. And I don't like it when people show up late, or I think it's disrespectful to leave people sitting around waiting for you. And then if you repeat that, it's just even worse. And I'm generally not that person. And forgetting little tasks is kind of the same thing. It's like just even little things. Like one of my people asked me if we could get a microwave, and I was like, yeah, I'll get a microwave. And that was like 3 months ago, and I never got it. It was like, well, I could just go on Amazon and fucking order that thing, or like we have this reading shit that we do in the business, so we all read the same books, and then we meet every week and talk about them. And sometimes I'll forget to order the books so that we'll have meetings and we won't have anything to talk about, shit like that, little things. But, at the end of the day, your word is really important. So if you tell somebody that you're going to do something and they come to expect that it may or may not happen, that's not a good place to be. So I'm taking steps to correct this and make sure that I can do that. And it was like, I was supposed to do a live with somebody on Friday, and I don't know what happened. Like I forgot that I knew that the live was supposed to be on Friday, but throughout the day, I forgot that it was even, that's what day it was. It was like, I didn't even realize that it was Friday the whole day. It was like, it's obvious that I'm sort of scatterbrained, and I got a lot of work to do to correct this. So it's mainly about delegating and stuff. So trying to figure out where the lesson is and all this. Well, I mean, I think that's pretty obvious. If you don't keep your word, people are going to start expecting you to not keep it. And, I have people that I deal with that, and, you just don't want to be like that. So, I'm working on that. And so the other thing I was thinking about, and I saw this on a video recently, I can't remember who it was. I was just kind of like scrolling through stuff. So I saw this thing where this guy was talking to this other dude, like on a podcast or something. And he asked the guy, he said, so if you had a friend that you and your friend decided that you were going to go to the gym together, and 10 days in a row, they were supposed to go with you and they flaked on you. After a while, what would you think? And the guy was like, well, I would stop asking him, because I would assume that he's just not going to go, and that's pretty obvious. And then he said, well, that's what you're doing to yourself when you don't keep your word to yourself. And I was like, fuck, man, that's like a really good point, because you're sort of training your brain. If you tell yourself, like if you're in your head and you're like, look, I want to do this, and I'm going to do it on Tuesday. And then on Tuesday, you don't do it. And you do that over and over and over again. It's the same thing as if somebody in your circle is always flaking on you. You come to expect that they're not going to be there. So I'm sure we all have these people in our lives where they were like, yeah, I'll be there. And you're like, okay, yeah, he may or may not be there. If he does show up, he's going to be late. Like, we all know those people. So if you're telling yourself that you're going to do something and you constantly don't do it, you're also training your brain that you're not going to do the shit that you say you're going to do for yourself. And I started thinking about this a while back, because like outside of the, like on Friday, I missed that. That's pretty rare for me to completely miss an appointment. Like it almost never happens, but I'm not saying it never does. It's very, very rare. So usually when it's other people that are relying on me, there's a lot more urgency in it. And that's, I'll show up early and make sure I'm there on time if there's, trouble parking and, traffic and shit like that. So I always make sure I'm there early. But then when it comes to an appointment for myself, like even if I put it in the calendar, I'm going to do this on Sunday. Like there's been a lot of Sundays where I'm like, I'm going to paint on Sunday. And then Sunday comes around and I don't feel like doing it and I don't do it. The more I do that, the less reliable my word is to my own brain. So it's weird to think because it's the same thing. So the appointments that you make for yourself are just as important, maybe even more important. I guess, I don't know, it's hard to say. It might be more important simply because you probably break more promises to yourself than you do to other people, most likely. I don't know. I would imagine. I know I do. I do this shit all the fucking time. Like all the time where I've been saying I need to paint more for fucking years. And I just keep pushing that off. And so I don't want to be like that. I don't want to be unreliable, even if it's to the appointments that I make for myself. I don't want to be unreliable like that. So, as the year comes to an end, that's something that I do want to change about myself and something that I do want to improve on. I want my team to know if I tell them something's going to happen, it's going to happen. And it's going to happen when I say it's going to happen or even before that. And potentially more importantly, the appointments that I make for myself and the things that I tell myself I'm going to do, I got to do those things because I think now my brain is sort of trained on this idea that it's like I'll probably blow off a lot of the shit that I want to get done. And so, there's a lot to this, like that you can sort of train your brain to pick up on shit like that. Like I've talked about the power list, and there's something about it, when you're on a winning streak, you want to maintain that. And the longer you go, like I think my winning streak right now, I'm on a 20-day winning streak. So I've finished all the tasks on my list every day for 20 days so far. And so now my brain is more trained to not want to fail, or not so much fail, not want to lose that day, And so I would imagine that if I did lose one day and didn't get all my tasks done, I would jump back on it. So over time, I'm being more conditioned to maintain that. But I know throughout the time of doing the power list, I'm like on day 400 and something right now. There have been times where I've been on losing streaks. And what happens is, let's say you lose one day, you don't get all your tasks done, and you put the L next to the page, and then you're like, the next day comes around and there's a task on there that you really don't want to do. And you're like, man, I'll just take a loss, And the more you do that, the more your brain becomes sort of accustomed to it and kind of desensitized to the idea. And so, but when you're on a winning streak, it's the opposite. You're sort of, you really don't want that to happen. So that's another form of keeping your word to yourself. And that's a tool that I'm going to be relying on more. Even I know I do it every day, but I'm going to rely on it more to keep those promises. So these days, there's 5 critical tasks. I could go into the whole thing, but I've talked about the power list before. If you want to know about the power list, I would just look up Andy Frisella power list, and you'll find information about it. But essentially, it's just 5 critical tasks that move your life forward. So it's not like to-do list items. So I generally wouldn't put like do my laundry or something like that. Like that's not a critical task. But at the same time, I have been now putting more than 5 tasks on there because I'm using that as a tool to make sure I keep my promises. So like today, as I was leaving, one of my teammates said, "Oh, we need to get this done." So I just wrote it on my power list. So my power list today was, I think 8 or 9 items, just to make sure I keep my word. And so I'm trying to get better about that. And if you're in the Discord community, like I kind of come and go on there more than I would like. So I want to make sure I keep my word there. And I want to make sure I'm putting these episodes out consistently and just kind of present myself in a more reliable way than I think I have been. And I'm not sitting here being all hard on myself. Like I do a ton of shit and I understand that. I really do a lot of stuff, but I do feel like I could be more consistent, and I could be very much more consistent with keeping the, appointments that I make for myself. So I don't know, kind of didn't write anything down, but I think as far as action steps, I think the power list is probably helpful. And then just mainly, me just doing an audit on myself and just being like, there's people that are saying like, oh, all you have is your word. Or if you're like thinking Scarface, your word and your balls or whatever. I mean, if you think on those lines, just do an audit on yourself and like think, do I really do all the shit that I say I'm going to do? Do I really follow through? Do I really get things done when I say I'm going to do them? Do I show up on time? Do I keep those promises that I make to myself? If I say I'm going to get in shape and I'm going to go to the gym 5 days a week, and every week goes by and you didn't go to the gym, you're chipping away at your sort of belief in yourself. So I think you're doing damage, and I think it's worth correcting. So I'm going to be doing that. So yeah, that's all I got. Hope it was helpful. I will see you next week. Oh, before I go, want to just remind you, we still have that Discord channel. If you ever want to jump on there, feel free to send me an email, bus@machinestudio.com, or you can message me on Instagram @bus166, and we'll give you an invite. I say that at the end of the episode because if you listen to the whole episode, you're already most likely the kind of person we want in there. All right, good.
Appreciate each and every one of you guys who are supporting the cause and continue to spread the love. And yeah, stay up.